Hi, this video is about two simple questions that I asked in my Facebook group, and I want to share with you what those questions were, what the answers were, and what we can do with that information. So I posed into my Facebook group two questions. One of the questions was, what did your childhood teach you about parenting? The second question was, if you were parenting the way that your parents parented you, what would you be doing? If you were parenting the way that you were raised, what would you be doing? And I bet you can already imagine that some of the answers to that question were not great. In fact, I would say almost all of the answers to that question, or both of those questions, were terrible. The answers were things like screaming and yelling at my kids, shaming and blaming, not talking about emotions, hitting things, getting drunk, like all of the things that we experienced ourselves growing up as children, and the things that if we were to just replicate what our parents did, we would be doing right now as parents. And it would be so easy for me to have read all of those responses and felt just honestly like burdened and crushed under this just crazy legacy and the weight of everything that we as parents have inherited from the generations before us. That is a weighty burden. It is a very crushing thing to think about. But actually, that's not what I felt. What I felt when I was reading those responses was inspiration because, well, first of all, this is people posting in a parenting group, which means that these are people who have joined groups because they want to learn more about parenting and get support in being parents. They're sharing their experiences, which means that they're aware of their experiences and aware of how they weren't okay. And they are trying really hard not to replicate what their parents have done. And that is actually, for me, inspirational. Not only inspirational, is very gratifying, because literally the whole reason why, the mission behind everything I do in my work is exactly this: helping families break generational cycles. And every single parent who commented on those posts was evidence that it was happening, and that I was actually creating a space that made that even a little bit easier, a little bit more possible. So what I want to do in this video is talk about three things that are awesome about everything that people shared on those comments, everything that you might have experienced when you were a child, and all of those things. The first is how we can turn our past, no matter how awful it was or how traumatic or even damaging it might have been, into a healthy foundation, a strong foundation in parenting. And in a tiny little soundbite, the answer to that is our parents, at the very least, have given us a framework of what not to do as parents. And that seems really cliche. I think a lot of us talk about like, oh, I learned from my parents how I don't want to be a parent. That's great. That can stay a cliche for you if you don't do anything about it. But if you do more than just decide that you don't want to be the way your parents were, or get angry when you see yourself doing things your parents did, or when someone points out that you're being similar to your parents, if you do more than that, if you decide to bring intention and action to that concept of this is exactly what I don't want to do, your past now becomes not only a foundational element for your parenting, but a strong motivator that is the fire inside of you that keeps you going. And that is my story. I don't think I ever would have started the business I did, or felt so passionately about it, or been such a strong and intentional force for my own children and my parenting, if I hadn't had the experiences I did growing up. And I know lots of parents who feel the same way. The second thing I want to talk about is how we can use our past to kind of quell our inner critic, because all of us who are trying to break generational cycles are also subject to those generational cycles. It's not as simple as just saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. This is what we learned. We learned it almost practically on a cellular level. And so breaking that cycle is hard. So what I said to all of the parents who commented on my post, and what I'm going to say to you to wrap this video up, is when you are feeling down, I want you to notice your answer to this question. If I were parenting the way my parents did, what would I be doing? Notice that the answer to that question is not the same as the answer to the question, how am I parenting? I am not parenting the way my parents did. Notice your answer to that question and how different it is from the parenting you're actually using with your child. And I want you to remember that the next time you feel those old ancient patterns coming out and your inner critic is telling you that you're following backward, you are not. You are breaking chains. You are moving forward, and noticing the disparity between what did my parents do versus what am I doing is a really great place to start reassuring yourself and kind of shutting that inner critic down so that you can keep going and keep taking the baby steps you need to take to live out that mission you have of breaking generational cycles. If this sounds like what you want to be doing, you need to be registered for Parenting Revolution. It is coming up in just a few days, and I want you to be there. It is a free workshop. It is my only free workshop of 2022, and it is the foundation for every other workshop and teaching that I'm going to be doing all year long. And when we start deciding that we want to break these generational chains, one of the things we often learn is that it's not enough to just want to, we need help. And that is what this workshop is about. That help starts with Parenting Revolution, with reaching out, with sharing your story, and with getting support. I can't wait to see you. I think it's going to be an amazing workshop, and I can't wait to answer your questions, give you tons of information, and just get to know you more. Bye.